There comes a moment in life when we feel the weight of the world on our shoulders. Our worries seem greater than our ability to face them. Our fears keep us awake at night, and many times we sense that there are forces working against us, even if we cannot clearly identify them. It is in this context of vulnerability and the need for divine protection that Psalm 27 emerges as a powerful prayer of faith, courage, and trust in the Lord. When King David wrote this psalm, he was not in a moment of peace. His life was marked by constant persecution, enemies who conspired against him, and situations that placed him face to face with death. Yet his words do not reflect despair, but an unshakable confidence in God. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? These opening words of the psalm set the tone for the entire message. When God is with us, there is no reason to fear. Envy is one of the most destructive forces that can surround us. It does not necessarily come from strangers, but often from those who are close to us, people who watch our achievements and, instead of rejoicing with us, feel a growing bitterness in their hearts. Envy shows itself in subtle ways, seemingly harmless comments that actually seek to diminish our accomplishments, looks of disapproval, sudden and unexplained distance, or even more direct actions intended to hinder our progress. Psalm 27 teaches us that when faced with the envy of others, our protection does not lie in defending ourselves with our own strength, but in trusting that God is our shield. David knew well the danger of envy. He was pursued by Saul, who should have protected him as king, but was consumed with jealousy over David's popularity and victories. Even though he was anointed and chosen by God, David was not immune to the attacks of those who envied him. However, he did not allow the envy of others to make him abandon his purpose or live in constant paranoia. His strategy was simple yet powerful: to seek the presence of God. One thing I ask of the Lord, and this I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. This pursuit of God's presence was not just a religious ritual for David, it was a vital need. He understood that being close to God meant being protected, strengthened, and guided. When we face the envy of others, our first reaction may be confrontation, aggressive self-defense, or isolation. However, Psalm 27 invites us to respond differently, to draw even nearer to God, to make his presence our priority, and to trust that he will take care of us. The fears we carry are many and profound. Fear of the future, fear of losing what we have achieved, fear of not being enough, fear of disappointing those we love, fear of facing situations beyond our control. These fears can paralyze us, preventing us from making important decisions, moving forward with our plans, or simply living with joy. What is interesting is that David does not deny the existence of frightening situations. He acknowledges that an army encamps against me, and that war rises against me. The difference lies in his response. Even then, I will be confident. The confidence David expresses is not the result of naivety or ignorance about the real dangers surrounding him. It is a conscious confidence grounded in the experience of someone who has already seen God act in impossible situations. When he says, "For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his tent and set me high upon a rock." He is declaring that there is a safe refuge, a protection that goes beyond physical circumstances. This refuge is found in the presence of God. Removing fears does not mean we will stop facing difficult situations or that life will become easy. It means that, even in the midst of storms, our soul will remain at peace because we know who is in control. It is like being on a boat during a storm. If we are alone, panic takes over. But if there is an experienced and trustworthy captain by our side, even if the waves are high, we have peace. Psalm 27 reminds us that God is this experienced captain, and he never abandons the boat. Hidden enemies are perhaps the most dangerous because we cannot clearly see them. They are the traps set in secret, the conspiracies formed in the shadows, the slanderous words spoken when we are not present. There are people who smile at us, but wish us harm behind our backs. David faced many of these hidden enemies. People he trusted betrayed him. Counselors who should have been loyal conspired against him. And even members of his own family turned against him at certain moments. What should we do when we don't know exactly where the attack is coming from? How can we defend ourselves from something we cannot identify? Psalm 27 gives us the answer. When the wicked came against me to devour my flesh, my enemies and foes stumbled and fell. Notice that David does not say he knocked them down, but that they stumbled and fell. There is divine intervention that protects those who trust in the Lord. The plans of hidden enemies turn against themselves. This is a profound spiritual truth. Those who dig pits for others end up falling into them. A person who works to harm someone under God's protection will eventually reap the consequences of their own actions. We do not need to seek revenge or waste our energy trying to discover who is against us. Our responsibility is to remain faithful, upright, and confident in God. He will take care of bringing down the hidden enemies. There is an important aspect in Psalm 27 that cannot be ignored. Persistence in faith, even when God's answer seems delayed. David says, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart." Wait, I say, on the Lord. He repeats the word wait, emphasizing that waiting is an essential part of the faith journey. We live in a time where everything is instantaneous, and this mindset may lead us to believe that God should act immediately as well. However, God's timing is different from ours, and his wisdom is infinitely superior. Waiting on the Lord is not passive waiting filled with discouragement or resignation. It is active waiting, full of expectation and trust. It means continuing to do what is right, continuing to pray, continuing to trust, even when circumstances have not yet changed. It is like a farmer who plants a seed and, although he sees no immediate results, continues to tend the soil because he knows the harvest will come. Psalm 27 encourages us to have this same attitude of patient trust. Many people apply Psalm 27 to their daily lives as a powerful prayer of protection. Upon waking up, before facing the challenges of the day, they recite its words and let them penetrate their hearts. There are countless testimonies of people who, by making Psalm 27 part of their spiritual routine, have experienced significant change. Situations that seemed impossible were resolved in unexpected ways. People who were obstacles in their lives simply moved away. Fears that once paralyzed them lost their strength, and an inexplicable peace settled in their hearts. This does not mean that Psalm 27 is a magic formula. The Bible is not a book of spells or enchantments. The power of Psalm 27 lies in the truths it contains and in the faith it awakens in our hearts. When we meditate on these words, we align our thoughts with the truth of who God is and what he is capable of doing. We choose to believe in his promises instead of being dominated by circumstances. The practice of declaring Psalm 27 over our lives is a way of exercising our faith. When we say, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" we are not merely reciting words, but making a declaration of faith. We are telling fear, envy, hidden enemies, and ourselves that our trust is anchored in something far greater than any problem we may face. There is also a communal aspect in Psalm 27. Although it is a personal declaration of faith, it also connects us with millions of people throughout the centuries who have found comfort, strength, and protection in these same words. When we pray this psalm, we join a great cloud of witnesses who also trusted God in the midst of their adversities and witnessed his faithfulness. This strengthens us, reminding us that we are not alone in our journey. For those going through moments of great difficulty, Psalm 27 is like a hug from God. It tells us, "I know you are afraid. I know there are people against you. I know you feel vulnerable, but I am here. I am your light in darkness, your strength in weakness, your protection in danger." These words have the power to calm the most distressed soul and give courage to the most fearful heart. It is also important to notice that David was not only fleeing from his enemies. He had a burning desire to be in the presence of God. He did not see God merely as a... Removing fear does not mean we will stop facing difficult situations or that life will suddenly become easy. It means that even in the midst of storms, our soul remains at peace because we know who is in control. It is like being on a boat during a storm. If we are alone, panic takes over. But if there's an experienced and trustworthy captain beside us, even when the waves rise high, we can find peace. Psalm 27 reminds us of this truth. David did not seek God merely as a protector or a problem solver, but as someone whose presence he longed for. One thing I ask of the Lord, this I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. This intimate relationship with God was his highest priority. And it is exactly this relationship that becomes our greatest source of protection and peace. When we make God our priority, when we seek his presence not only in moments of crisis, but as a lifestyle, something changes within us. We develop a spiritual sensitivity that allows us to discern dangers before they fully manifest. We grow in wisdom to make decisions that steer us away from harmful situations. And above all, we build an inner fortress that cannot be shaken by external storms. Psalm 27 also teaches us about the importance of maintaining the right perspective. David says, "Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me." He recognizes that even the closest people can disappoint or abandon us, but God never will. This perspective frees us from the need to depend solely on people for our security and well-being. We can love and value people without placing upon them the burden of being our source of security, because that is a responsibility only God can carry. Throughout our lives, we will face different kinds of enemies and challenges. Some will be obvious and direct, while others will be subtle and hidden. There will be moments when we feel the weight of someone else's envy trying to pull us down, and moments when our own fears attempt to stop us from moving forward. But if we make Psalm 27 not just an occasional prayer, but a constant declaration of our faith, we will discover that God is faithful to fulfill his promises. The beauty of Psalm 27 lies in its spiritual practicality. It does not ask us to ignore problems or pretend they do not exist. Instead, it teaches us to acknowledge difficulties but not allow them to define our reality. Our reality is defined by who God is and by what he has promised to do for those who trust in him. When we internalize this truth, when it becomes part of who we are, we experience a freedom and peace that transcend any circumstance. Finally, Psalm 27 ends with a word of encouragement. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. It is as if David, after sharing his entire experience of faith and divine protection, looks us in the eyes and says, "Don't give up. Keep trusting. Keep waiting. God will not fail you." And this is the message we need to hear today, no matter what we are facing. The power of Psalm 27 is not in magical words, but in the absolute truth it proclaims. God is our light, our salvation, our fortress. He delivers us from envy, removes our fears, and destroys the hidden enemies working against us. And when we make this truth the foundation of our lives, we discover that we are truly invincible, not by our own strength, but because the Almighty God fights for us.